Chapter 1998, The Deep Blue. Now that Pokong and Ji-hong were dead, the mutants of the Atlantis Kingdom left one by one, leaving only destruction behind them. How could this happen? When did humans evolve to this level? Could it be that the sixth generation of humans has rapidly evolved in a way we cannot imagine? The silver armor generals of the Wulwan Empire roared in anger and despair. In the past, the mutants of previous generations always had the advantage of information. Therefore, before the end of each era, they were far stronger than the humans of their time. First, they were able to survive the end of the previous era, naturally preserving their history, civilization, and technology. Second, as soon as the end of the world arrived, they would collect the spiritual energy floating around in the world to enhance their own strength. That was why the Wulwan Empire shocked the entire world when it first made its move. The strength they displayed was enough to wipe out the entire human civilization. If it weren't for the White Dragon, the Hades gatekeepers would have led their army and wiped out the entire Huashu Kingdom in a single day without breaking a sweat. Given more time, they would have been able to wipe out all humans on the planet. But it had only been a year since that battle. How could such monsters be born among humans? Could this be the will of the Creator? The silver armor generals knew they were doomed, so they fought even harder, determined to take a few people down with them before they died. Zhang Yi continued to watch silently. He needed to train his companions so that they would not rely on him. Fortunately, even Fatty Su had grown to a good level within the team. He was not the main offensive force in the team, but with his powerful control, he was able to assist his teammates within the area. Moreover, the power of ice allowed him to both attack and defend, which was more than enough to protect himself. With Yang Xinshin's strategic planning, this team could conquer the world without any problems. Zhang Yi sensed a curious and inquiring gaze coming from afar, so he opened the dimensional gate and shuffled through space while keeping an eye on the battle here. He arrived at the shore, where the black tortoise's huge body was suspended in the weak water, floating up and down like a huge warship. Li Changgong and Vermilion Bird stood on his head, looking at Zhang Yi with complex expressions. In the sea beside them, 3 mermaids stood in the water, looking at Zhang Yi with curiosity and amazement. Zhang Yi nodded to them in greeting. Although he didn't know where they came from, he could sense that they meant him no harm. Zhang Yi then greeted Li Changgong and the other 2. "I've been busy dealing with problems here and didn't have time to talk to you guys. Tell me what's going on." Li Changgong's eyes were extremely complicated. After comprehending the Death Sword, his combat strength had been fundamentally enhanced. He had originally thought that after returning to the Huashu Kingdom, even if he couldn't enter the Archbishop realm in a short period of time, he would definitely be the top expert below the Archbishop level. However, watching Zhang Yi destroy a pair of Pokongs with a single strike made his scalp tingle. Judging from the energy explosion of the Pokong, that was a supernatural ability index of over 40,000 points, even stronger than the fake Hades gatekeeper in the Battle of Tianhai City. Zhang Yi killed him? Li Changgong felt like he was in a dream. Vermilion Bird was the first to react. She was fine, even though she was a mutant with extraordinary talent. After all, she had only broken through recently. Whether Zhang Yi was at the White Bishop level or the Black Bishop level, he was an insurmountable existence to her, so she didn't find it too surprising. "Chaos, long time no see. Let me introduce you. The 3 people next to me are the helpers we invited this time. They are from the Deep Blue Kingdom at the bottom of the sea. They are Prince Matsuri of the Deep Blue Kingdom, General Yu, and General Narumi. If I put it another way, you might understand better. The place they come from is called Guishu in the ancient books of the Huashu Kingdom." Zhang Yi was certainly familiar with this name, as Yang Xinshin had mentioned it to him before. If there were powerful civilizations in the deep sea, then there were a few places that were most likely candidates. The first place was Atlantis, a civilization that had been confirmed to exist at the bottom of the sea, where the Knights of the Round Table had ventured into the ruins many times. That's right. It was the kingdom where those guys had just been. However, Zhang Yi thought that place had been completely conquered by the Knights of the Round Table. But now it seemed that there might be other hidden circumstances that King Arthur had not fully disclosed. The second place was, of course, Goetiu, which had existed since ancient times in ancient books such as the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Zhang Yi greeted the three mermaids of the Deep Blue Kingdom in a friendly manner. Hello, everyone, I am Chaos. High-level civilizations all have the ability to convert languages, so Zhang Yi wasn't worried that they wouldn't understand him. Prince Matsuri seemed to have been waiting to greet Zhang Yi for a long time. Upon hearing him speak, he immediately swam to the shore and reached out to shake Zhang Yi's hand. You are Chaos, right? I didn't expect humans on land to have become so powerful. But you sound a little different from your three friends. You seem like a very powerful and kind person. Zhang Yi was completely confused. He raised his eyebrows and glanced at Li Changgong and the other two. Li Changgong and Vermilion Bird silently moved their heads to the left and right, and Black Tortoise also closed his huge eyes, pretending that nothing had happened. What did they say about me? Hee. Zhang Yi gritted his teeth and asked with a forced smile. The prince was no longer cold and aloof like when he was facing the Atlanteans just now. He looked enthusiastic as he held Zhang Yi's hand and talked excitedly. Oh, they said you're a very cunning guy who always likes to pretend to be weak, then stab people in the back when they're not paying attention. Zhang Yi looked coldly at Li Changgong and the other two, who still didn't dare to meet his gaze. Those are just the prejudices of worldly people. You understand, someone as excellent as me is bound to be envied by my peers. Prince Matsuri laughed, hee. That's right, I could tell at a glance that you're not an ordinary person. Zhang Yi looked at the three guys in front of him. Prince Matsuri had dark yellow skin and a clear, foolish smile. General Narumi had red skin and a serious expression, while General Yu always had a long face. May I ask how you guys know each other? Chapter 1999, The Deep Blue 2. Time, half a month ago. Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and Li Changgong were completely enveloped by a large mass of yellow sponges. Black Tortoise struggled desperately, but he was completely unable to move within the sponges, as if he had lost all his strength. Oh no, oh no, oh no! We're in big trouble now. Black Tortoise covered his head and roared in fear. Why is this happening? We just got to the bottom of the sea, and we've already encountered these monsters? The gray-blue giant octopus was already very difficult to deal with, but he didn't expect there to be even stronger creatures. Now, he, a black chariot-level deep-sea mutant, had become fish meat on a cutting board. Inside the Black Tortoise, everyone's faces were pale and terrifying. This wasn't their first time following Black Tortoise on a mission in the deep sea, so they knew the rules of the sea very well. This was a world where the weak were preyed upon by the strong, and the weak would be devoured by the strong and become energy for their evolution. Black Tortoise had grown to this level because it had devoured enough deep-sea monsters. So today, was it their turn to be devoured? No one could remain calm at the thought of being eaten. Black Tortoise covered his head, looked at Li Changgong fiercely, gritted his teeth and said, "It's all your fault for being too impatient. How could there be no one guarding such a treasure? If you had been more careful, we could have planned it out and obtained it slowly, and we definitely wouldn't have ended up in this situation." At this moment, Li Changgong also felt a little regretful. But facing such a situation at that time, how could he suppress his excitement? In his pocket, there was now a golden fruit, and the surging energy was very similar to that of the spirit of sacrifice. If he could eat it and completely absorb its energy, his strength would definitely increase greatly. It's too late to talk about that now. We must find a way to save ourselves. Li Changgong looked at Black Tortoise. Black Tortoise, is there any way to escape this hypnosis? At the bottom of the sea, they could only rely on Black Tortoise. Who would have thought that Black Tortoise would laugh coldly after hearing this? Escape? Where do you think you are? We are nearly 20,000 meters below the sea floor. Imagine this, you left the surface of the planet and entered space. What kind of support could the ground forces give you? Oh no, if we were in space, human weapons could still strike from a distance. But this is the deep sea. Communication with the surface is very difficult, and they can't support us at all. Even Black Tortoise said so. Li Changgong was truly desperate. Then, Reaper of Love. He mentioned this thing, which seemed to be humanity's most powerful and final resort. It's useless. Black Tortoise closed his eyes. The launch port has been completely blocked. Unless we detonate it from the inside and go down with them, but I don't think that's a good idea. He took a deep breath, slowly opened his eyes, and tried to calm himself down. Let's see what they're going to do. Black Tortoise's body was shaking, and he could feel himself being dragged away. The enemy had no intention of killing them all directly. That yellow sponge was too powerful and had easily subdued them. It was at least as powerful as a bishop. If it really wanted the lives of Black Tortoise and the others, it wouldn't have taken much effort. So it must have had another purpose. The people on the ship were completely helpless, but Li Changgong was able to temporarily slash open a gap in the sponge and use his flying cloud steps to escape. However, in the deep sea, his abilities were too limited, and if he tried to run, he would most likely die even faster. So he finally chose to find a chair to sit down, placed his hands on the hilt of his sword, and waited for the unknown. Time passed, and suddenly Black Tortoise felt his body stop. The sponges on his body were peeled off layer by layer, and everyone slowly regained their vision. A loud noise rang in their ears, and when they looked around, everyone was stunned. They had thought that 20,000 meters below the surface of the deep sea, it would be a dark and gloomy abyss. But what they saw was as bright as daylight on land. They were surrounded by a three-dimensional space composed of objects similar to coral reefs, which looked like mountains of various sizes. In the middle of the coral reefs were huge white clamshells, as big as wheels. When the clamshells opened, they revealed bright and lustrous pearls inside, which lit up the area like street lamps. There were some very special fish swimming around, colorful and strange-looking, with bodies as flat as paper, but exceptionally beautiful. At this moment, Black Tortoise seemed to have landed on a huge underwater platform. It was surrounded by people. They were mermaids with upper bodies similar to humans but with fish tails. Mermaids! The sailors on the ship exclaimed in astonishment, their eyes wide with excitement and shock. This mythical creature, which had only existed in legends, was now before their very eyes. Yes, those creatures had human bodies and fish tails, just like the mermaids of legend, except that their bodies were covered with delicate colored scales, even on the corners of their eyes and faces, and their ears were not like human ears, but a special tissue similar to fish fins. A large group of mermaids completely surrounded Black Tortoise, and many tall, armored mermaids who looked like soldiers held tridents to keep the crowd away. More and more mermaids gathered around, waiting to see this strange sight. Because they all lived in the deep sea, they had only heard of creatures that existed above the surface in legends. Therefore, at this moment, they viewed everyone on the Black Tortoise no differently than humans viewed them. Li Changgong cautiously gripped his long sword with both hands and observed everything outside through the porthole. He was shocked to discover that the civilization here was not advanced, and the people's way of working seemed to be stuck in ancient times, using huge sea fish as a means of transportation and labor. However, the equipment worn by the merman warriors looked very sophisticated. After dragging the Black Tortoise to the bottom of the sea, the three giant sea beasts returned to their original forms. Prince Matsuri did not completely release the Black Tortoise, only allowing its head to show, while its body remained wrapped up like a large rice dumpling. The Black Tortoise's spirit suddenly said happily to Li Changgong, "Great, we may still be saved."